Okay, good evening. Welcome to the meeting of the Corporate Policy and Finance Committee today, Wednesday, 11th of January, 2023. As usual, I'm not used to saying that. I have to remember that. Okay. Apologies for absence. I don't think there can be any.
No, none received.
Yeah. Any declarations of interest? No. Chairman's report, urgent items. I have nothing to add under section 3. Public questions in accordance with Standing Order 20. And that's officer?
None received, Chair.
None received. Okay. Item 5, minutes. To confirm the minutes of the Corporate Policy and Finance Committee meeting held on 9th of November 2022. Any comments to those minutes? No. Okay, if we can just confirm those. Everybody's happy with those? Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Minutes of other meetings refer to Corporate Policy and Finance Committee, minutes of Council Risk Subcommittee held on 15th November 2022 and 22nd of November 2022. Councillor Turnbull.
Oh, I recommend we accept the recommendations of the Risk Management Committee in 8 to 8.7.
Well, we could take the recommendations later.
Recommend the Risk Management Strategy for approval by the Corporate Policy and Finance Committee, and if so approved, go forward into the Council for approval.
I was going to take the two recommendations later on the agenda. Yeah.
We note the report and recommended it forward to the Corporate Policy and Finance Committee for approval.
Be happy to receive those minutes. Thank you. Okay. Officers' reports. Forward planner and resolution tracker. Finance officer.
Thanks, Chair. So all the items on the resolution tracker from our last meeting in November have been marked as complete, and councillors may wish to note that following our review of the health and safety policy in November in our last meeting, report has been added to the forward plan to look at the accident monitoring in our March meeting, but I have to take any further questions.
Any other questions on the forward planner? No. In that case, can we agree the recommendations, note and approve the forward planner and note the resolution tracker? Thank you. Budgetary control 2022-23. That's officer.
Thank you, Chair. So this report reflects the financial position as at the end of November 2022. If I can draw your attention to Appendix A on page 26, we're currently showing a favourable variance of just over 3,000. The main changes from the September monitoring report that we looked at last time in our meeting in November relate to staffing costs and investment interest. So on staffing costs, this is due to the increased pay award compared to what we budgeted. So we budgeted a 4% pay award, but what was actually received was a fixed 1,925. So that's been confirmed now. So that's slightly higher than we budgeted, as well as there's been a need for maternity cover for one of our posts. So that's the other part of that. And all of that has been partially offset by the increased investment interest that we spoke about last time when we were talking about the Treasury Management Strategy. But have to take any further questions.
Any questions on the out
I just wondered, thank you, I just wondered roughly how much cash we have in the bank that we're getting interest from.
So there's, say, about 2.8 million that we've got invested at the minute.
Okay.
So we've got 2 deals of £1 million that are fixed for 6 months at a time to try and spread out to help the cash flow. And then there's some money that we can call upon with HSBC and organisation called CTLA, plus the 500,000 that was agreed last time. That's in the 32-day call account.
So rising interest rates, that it's meaningful.
Yeah, it helps. Yeah.
It's actually quite significant.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
That's not if you've got a mortgage. But
It's going from virtually zero, it's going to virtually zero.
That's the trade-off, I'm afraid. That's the trade-off. Okay, at a 3,000 favourable variance, do you think that's roughly where it's going to be sort of level at the end of March, or what do you think the outturn for the year is likely to be?
I'm always hopeful that it will be a bit better, but you never know. Obviously, the report is based on as at the end of November, but I'm not expecting, apart from any real sort of unknowns that come out of nowhere that we're not expecting, I can't imagine that we're going to be any less than that 3,000.
No. Good.
You can ask a silly question, Chair. Do you actually build in any, do I use the word fat, to allow for adjustments on the accruals, etc., when you come to the year end? Most good finance directors are well used to sort of making sure the numbers work out correctly.
It's not something that I do.
Most good finance directors wouldn't admit.
Yeah, I know that. But maybe you should practice that.
From personal
That's
experience.
up your sleeve somewhere. I recommend it.
I get noted.
I think that's the right answer.
The new insurers, Aviva, who's taken on, they were recommended as the best alternative. And when we say the best alternative, is that the value for money? Is that because of price, or because we ensure that they provide all the cover that we need?
Where it's both of those things is the advice that we've got from the broker. I think it's a very tough insurance market out there at the minute, with lots of organisations not interested in covering local authorities for insurance, and certainly looking to increase their own profits. So we're in a real tough market out there to get insurance cover. Hence the reason the premiums have reflected and gone up as well.
Just to illustrate, Chair, I know a situation I'm involved with where Aviva were the insurers and they declined to renew. As a result, we've had to go out to the market to pay about 50% more.
I think certainly with colleagues across other local authorities, everyone's saying the same thing, with premiums going up by 150% across the board. So we're certainly not isolated in seeing that big increase this year.
I was interested in commenting on the 3.18. There's a net saving of 4,000, which relates to the delay in securing the Eastern Storage Depot. Well, obviously, we must be storing stuff somewhere at the moment. We better delay.
We are using the depot in Northampton. We're just waiting for the final paperwork and the transfer to go through.
Right, well, I just thought that was an interesting piece. Why take on something that made you worse off? I was just interested. Okay, if there are no further questions, we'll take the recommendation of point 2. We're asked to note the report and note the release to reserves set out in 3. So
it's just the table. So
Yes.
on page 22. There's nothing new that's been released. It's just everything that was released at council
Yeah.
at the end of November.
Do we need to reapprove that, do we?
No, just to note it.
Yes, okay. We all happy with that? Thank you. Right. Budgets 23-24.
Thank you, Chair. So we've been through the budget a couple of times already, but this is the version that we're proposing is it goes on to council at the end of the month for final approval. In line with the target previously discussed, we've kept the precept increase under 9% and it's at 8.96% is the figure being proposed. The changes between the report presented in November to this one are shown on the table in paragraph 5.2 on page 28. The main items are reflecting the decisions made by the various committees in November, which are the investment interest, where we looked at the treasury management strategy last time. There's the reduction in the concourse income and the reduction in commercial events held on the common, as well as reflecting the most recent inflation figures where appropriate. So in previous years, inflation has been based on the June RPI, whereas what I've done is use the latest figures available, which is the November RPI. The December figure isn't available until this time next week. So the budget's based on the latest information that we've got to hand. So that's the variances between last time we met and this version. And so you've got the full picture here on page 36 and Appendix B that shows the breakdown from this year's budget to next year's budget with all of the changes shown. We already previously mentioned regarding the employee costs, but just to say again that, as I said when talking about the monitoring, so the fixed 1,925 that's been approved for this year, where that's the best guess that we've got what the future years will be. So that's what's been used and built into the budget going forward. But have to take any questions.
Chair, may I? Contract inflation, you've used keep using RPI. Has there been have you begun to try and move away from RPI to have CPI as the base for contracts going forward? There's a slight saving of CPI.
Yes, I think there are some contracts that we have that are based on CPI. Obviously, the main contract that we've got is the John O'Connor contract, and that is based on December RPI.
And
So
that will fall by the wayside when the contract.
potentially, obviously that's still up for debate, but the current contract doesn't end until March next year.
Okay.
Councillor Coulson and then Councillor DeCourt.
The 1,900, is that a flat, or 1,924, is that a flat figure? So it's worth more, well, it's a bigger percentage if you're lower paid than if you're.
Exactly.
The same clock, yeah.
So if you're at the very low end of the grade, you're looking at a 10.5% increase, whereas if you're at the very top, you're looking at about a 2.5%.
Yeah, I've got a question about the way you're presenting the commercial income and the commentary, and it also comes up in what you said, where you talked about the reduction of trading income. It's 35,000 there. But are we assuming we will get no income? You said trading due to cease on the concourse. We're assuming no income on the concourse?
So I've built some income in. It'll be we've got one of the traders still carrying on until June, so we've built that in, and then a small percentage going forward after that if the roll on roll off continues. So there is some income still left in.
Okay, so has there been a final decision that we offered them the chance to apply for planning? Have they decided not to then? So we know they're going in the end of June or something.
I don't think a final decision has been made. I think it was said that we'd certainly help them and support any sort of planning application, but it's down to them to present their own planning application.
So this would be the conservative element. Say it's assuming that they don't decide to pick it up. You've just got a little bit in after that point. Obviously, they're not contracted yet. They're going to be at that point.
I thought that actually sent a note round saying they were not going to go forward with it. The main one. I thought I've seen something in the press or somewhere, an email.
Some of the press reporting is pretty.
Yeah.
low quality.
We're going to take up the offer
Our
of
favourite local journalist.
submitting a planning application.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, no, that's fine if it's just, I mean, it may be just the phrasing. I know this is our phrasing, you know, full council, we just accept it's 35 less. But it's trading due to cease on the concourse. I mean, should we not say due to be substantially reduced or something?
I actually asked the same question when we were there, and yes, we can clarify that, I think. I think it's worth doing it.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
Councillor Brigham.
no, it was exactly my point. I think we've seen there's been quite a lot of Facebook activity and other activity about this, and like everybody I've spoken to has expressed how sad they are, and I'm sad by it, and I think most people are, but I don't know.
And some of the social media comment wasn't very helpful, quite frankly.
No. So absolutely. So I don't know. I think yes, what you're saying and trying to help them, but I think generally as a council, as much as possible, I would love it if we could be seen to be quite helpful in that. But I mean, it's not just my decision, and it's not necessarily this meeting.
It's
I
not
get
this
that.
committee, is it?
No, it's not this committee.
As I say, against Priya, I don't think it's for this particular meeting, because we're talking about a decision that was made after.
Yeah.
The question is here, are we happy with how that's been reflected?
Yeah.
In the budget, which I think Councillor Court was asking as well, so,
Yeah.
yes.
I'm happy with that. I say happy with the number because that's the number you come to, and I think it's better to have a conservative than a aggressive number. But it's just the phrasing of what we think is happening then.
Councillor Paul.
Yes.
Yeah, top of page 32, we'd have to approach council asking for some money, it's probably not a large sum. It does say, and it's not recommended, we'll actually go forward. We need to sort of part of the recommendation.
To be fair, I was going to actually,
Actually, recommendation.
well, I think that would be,
it's a good question, Councillor Potts. It's okay. Question 11, down on Wheatham said, is that going to be a matter for council then? Because there isn't actually a specific recommendation relating to that on the front of the paper.
So,
Good point.
thank you. So the idea is it's not something that we're recommending, but if councillors feel different and someone wants to recommend it and we have a seconder, then we can put it in as a recommendation to take it forward. Otherwise, there's no need for a recommendation to decline it. It'd just be if it's something that you want to support, and so it would mean changing the budget figures.
One problem is it's still up in the air, and if we don't propose council start looking at the minutes of this meeting, it's dropped off, isn't it?
Well, it'd still be in the council paper, I would think. Would it not be?
it'd still be mentioned in the council paper, won't it?
Well, I think where it's mentioned in the report, it would just be,
Like this.
yeah,
It wouldn't drop out, would it?
no, it couldn't drop out. It just, there's,
Should we not be recommending something for council?
Well, that's something that we can have a discussion, we can certainly open that to discussion. Councillor Farmer?
Well, I was going to say, it would seem to me that it would create, if we were to do so, an extremely dangerous precedent. I mean, where would that end? And for instance, if there is planning, or if there's something that happens that is within Wheaton boundaries, but has a financial impact on Harpenden, are they then going to say they will then provide money to us to cover that impact?
Can I, are there any other comments on this? Because I'm going to suggest that, I'm going to suggest that we add a line to our recommendation saying that we basically don't recommend acceptance of it. Councillor
That's fine. I mean, I agree with Councillor Blunt. I was going to ask just how much it was and whether it was for a particular thing.
That's,
That seemed.
the precedent, I agree with Councillor Farrell, the precedent is very, very questionable. Councillor Croft.
Mine's about something else. I don't know. Oh,
Sorry,
sorry.
I'll finish this one first. So one of the things we propose to do would be add to the recommendation of things that we don't recommend to council.
No, that's fine.
At this point, I mean, that's a very good point. Thank you for raising that, Councillor Paul. That's very good.
So just so I'm clear with the governance of it, do you want it to be to recommend not to pass it across, or just to note the section 11 where?
I think noting section 11 is fine. I think that's how it's just to complete the recommendation to council, basically.
Yeah.
Yes. Councillor de Court, you have a further point?
Yeah, sorry, but I thought as we were on the table, I finished with the table, but it's just 5.6, right at the bottom, talk about pressures and the pavilion, the new pavilion. Again, it's just a question of what I think we decided in council, really. Now, the phrasing is it's been decided that appropriate income levels made as cost will need to be built into the budget. But I thought we were doing a 6 months type review of the different, because obviously the initial officer's recommendation at full council was not to proceed. And obviously that changed in the debate in the council, and I can't remember the exact language, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we were then going to bring forward, I think it was looking at two potential scoping options and then decide. So I just think that, again, the danger's a bit similar to what Councillor Paul has said. Somebody reads this, which they're able to, they will think that we've somehow on the sly made a decision we're not going to do it, or start reporting that.
I think your summation of what happened at the council is absolutely right. And yes, this could be read as sort of predetermining a subsequent thing. I think there's no harm in clarifying that when it goes to the council and the papers, just to say, if specifications have been decided, that would probably.
Yes, I think it's yes. Well, it's if we decide to proceed after that review report, whatever. If we decide to proceed, then we'll obviously have to give it in.
Yeah,
I think it's reasonable to say that, given the fact it's going to be quite significant.
That's a fair point.
We don't know when in the year that's going to happen. So that was that one. And the other thing, smaller, it's merely just a query, but I think I want to clarify. It's 8.1 on special expenses. Obviously, we know there are some, and you have to state it, charged specifically to Harpenden residents. And I'm aware now of the sorts of things that involve car parks and public conveniences. But there's also reference to open spaces and playing fields. Are we still paying something for that? Or I thought we'd taken full control and sort of maintenance of it, but I may be wrong.
It's minimal. There's a few scraps of land that are still haven't transferred across.
Okay. Is there intention to do that? It's just sort of tied up with.
Not that I'm aware of, where they're so small.
There's give an example of one, maybe Councillor Farmer can, just don't think what they are anymore.
I think that, I think it might be wrong, because I seem to remember when the post box was put south down, that area of grass there might be one of these. That might be.
I mean, the open space sort of around Alzey Gardens and around there, that's still owned by the district.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's a reasonable size.
Yes, that's reasonable size.
Yeah, all right, yes.
Okay. Sorry, so they pay us to manage that, or we pay vice versa?
We pay them because it's services that just benefit the residents of Harpenden.
It's basically the district John O'Connor contract, not our bit that's cut out. John O'Connor doing it for the district getting charged, and then cutting the grass and whatever it's taking.
I don't think this comes through town council at all. What this is part of the number that comes through the council tax band from the district. I think, as I seem to remember, that's how it looked when we had the transfer from Rothamsted. If you remember, we had a table that said that the St Albans rate to Harpenden residents would reduce, and that would come up. And I think that's how it's done. So Harpenden pays for it, but not through the town council.
I'll certainly be able to provide more information, but unfortunately, with the timing of the various meetings, I won't get the special expenses information
No,
until it's discussed.
I wasn't looking at the numbers. I know they're not very large. It was just that obviously with what's gone on in the last couple of years, the transfer of assets, and we've built on various playing areas. It says open space, which I now understand, says we can't, I don't think we have to highlight that more. Are there any playing fields left or playing areas that still we're paying the district for?
Not with any play areas on or anything.
We can
like
just
that.
take that out.
So, yeah,
Just again, if somebody else says, hold on a minute,
yeah, I can certainly tidy up that wording.
Yeah, that's fine, but open spaces, yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you. That's all I wanted to clarify.
I'm not sure there are public conveniences either, but
I think, maybe wrong, but I think, HDC own them down by Lake,
Yeah.
but I think the contract for cleaning them is the district.
There's an agreement where we receive funds for the Leighton Road toilets, and as well, there's toilets that are classed as public toilets at the crematorium, I believe.
Yes, okay. So I think there is still some.
It's some of the.
Not large, but yeah. Okay, thank you.
I had a couple of points. I'll probably let the committee talk first. The first one is to bear in mind when we look at investment income and it subsidises the precept effectively. That's probably good news for next year, but at some point interest rates may well in fact fall again. We hope, but they may or may not. If they do, the problem that you have is that your investment income falls, but your cost base, which has been inflated, remains the same. So we just need to be aware that because it has been such a substantial benefit of the small rise in interest rates to the precept, effectively £40,000, that in the event that should ever reduce again, which probably won't in the immediate future, but if it did, then that could cause an additional problem because your cost base will not, of course, reduce. So we just need to bear that in mind. I don't think there's anything we can say on that. The second point that I had was on the medium-term financial strategy, Appendix A. Now, I know that this is a 3-year plan, and 3-year plans fairly out of position and past experience. Page
35.
It's about 35, which shows that at the moment, on the basis of best estimates and given with all the uncertainties that we have around, that we have next year a potential percentage increase of 12.04%. Which is obviously quite substantial. Now, at this stage, that's where it is and that's where the figures are and that's where the uncertainties are. So I don't think there's any point trying to recalculate that. I just think it's important again that, that a newly elected council in May may need to be aware that they may have to think about actions about whether they're comfortable with that or not, and probably in advance of sort of January, because otherwise there may be complications. So I was just pointing out it's something to be borne in mind, for next year, because 12% is quite heavy as a number.
Thank you.
The other point that I actually had was on the capital replacement reserve. Now, this was included at my request because I was very concerned over the last few months. I raised this subject a number of months ago, that this council has spent over its term or has been committed over its term to some significant capital spending. The issue with that is that sometime in the next 5 to 10 years, when those assets, the Rothamsted play area, potentially the skate park, potentially other things, comes to an end, the council is unlikely to have a further £2 million windfall at that point. but I'm sure no one would want to no longer have a play park at Rothamsted or whatever. So it's important as good, robust financial planning. I'm afraid this is me with my past commercial head coming onto this. I know this is not something that's popular in the public sector, forward planning at any level, but just to be aware that at some point the council would potentially face some significant costs. So I asked for a review of that because we'd need to plan as to how that would be covered, particularly if we're going to need some funds over the next 3 to 4 years. One of the options which is listed in under 7.4 is funded through council tax increases. I suspect trying to fund a further £200,000 for something in one council tax rise is probably simply not possible. And therefore it does require one of the other alternatives listed under section 7.4. For that reason, I asked the officers to prepare a very simple report, which they have done for me at Appendix C, showing over a time horizon of 10 years where there is likely to be potential additional capital spent. I am quite pleasantly surprised that a lot of the assets we put in are deemed to have a life of at least 10 years. I hope that is the case. But you know, at least we can now be seeing that we've actually looked at it, and therefore as a council we're aware of it and can plan for it. It's probably too early at this stage to do any significant planning for things on there, but we just need to be aware of that. There are 2 items on there, however, which catch my eye. The first one is the Christmas lights, which comes up in 4 or 5 years. The other items on there, I think, are probably manageable within unallocated reserves and things. But there's Christmas lights of £100,000, which if it was required at that time, and that would be up to the council at that time to replace. I would not like it to be in a position to say we can't replace it because we didn't have the money. You know, if we decide to have a lower grade set of lights or whatever at the time, that's for that council to decide. The other item is the hopper buses, and the hopper buses are not listed on there because it deems that, you know, they run out and are not replaced. I think that's a preemptive decision, because if the council wish to continue with the hopper buses at the end of their life, which is probably in the next 3 to 5 years, or the right time to realise the right residual on those buses probably is, then again I would hate the council to be restricted from not continuing a potentially viable community service at that time because it does not have the funds earmarked to cover it. So I am going to suggest, and I've taken the advice of the town clerk on this, to add a recommendation that the council look at the reserves allocations and levels at the same time as considering the 23-24 budget setting report, and at that point specifically consider allocations for future potential expenditure such as Christmas lights and the hopper buses. Councillor Farr.
Yes, I was not anticipating you're going to raise the hopper buses, but therefore I will have to declare an interest because, as you know, I'm a director
Thank you.
of the charity, so I won't comment or
Thank
if there's a vote on that. We'll not
So that probably wasn't on the agenda. Very big crystal ball guy, Councillor
Yes, I've got many talents, but that's not one of them.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So what I'm not saying is that we council consider allocations. Obviously, what that doesn't do, it doesn't commit any future council to that. They could decide to use that money for something else at any time. What it does do is this council is therefore just marking down that this is a potential item for them to be aware of, but it doesn't obviously commit any future council to anything at this stage because they can always allocate an allocation. So I will ask whether people are happy with that recommendation when we go through the various points, which if there are no other comments at this stage, I'm going to do now
Sorry,
Councillor
just clarify something you said there, John. So you're looking at this as something you might put forward. Is the suggestion that at council we're going to be asked to approve, to review whether we're going to do it, or do you think we're going to be asked to set aside some money, accepting the fact that we don't have to then spend, no council's committed to spend it, and the reserves wherever can
I would be asking to review and allocate it at that time.
So actually, so we're going to ask for more from the council tax bill, or we just do?
No. Okay, it's from the, sorry for such a big, from the unallocated amount of the capital receipts reserve. Sorry, thank you for asking me to clarify that.
I just
Fair
wanted to-
point.
yes.
No, I'm not, certainly not going to suggest raising any issue, but that, for exactly the reasons I've said, I've brought forward the replacement policy. It's not to cause distortions in the future, right?
Exactly. It makes a lot of sense because I imagine if the opera buses were potentially ready to be replaced next year, or even the Christmas lights, of course, we did buy new ones. They would be very likely to be capital receipts.
Yeah.
Well, put forward as capital receipts. Thanks for that. I
I've
understand.
taken some, about 80,000, I reckon.
Okay, thank you.
Bit
more generous, like up it.
Well, we can discuss that.
When you're doing that bit of a recommendation, that you'll split the light separately from the bus. Because
Yes.
I can vote on one, but not on the other.
Yes, well, that's why it's theoretically possible a councillor may want to support one and not the other, for example. Yes, that's always possible for a councillor to ask for that. Councillor.
Sorry, I'm confused. Are we going to say, for example, the lights and the hopper bus? Are this evening we're going to? Because, for example, I'm just going to, as an example, the hopper bus. Obviously, I'm not against it, but I've never seen anyone on it.
It's actually it's actually increasingly used, and it's pretty busy, and it's actually had
Which it may
growing
be.
number of passengers.
It may be, but which I don't dispute, but I suppose the point I'm saying is if we're deciding about things, then you'd need to really know the numbers,
Well,
wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, no, because all I'm suggesting is that we earmark some money. If the council at that point decided to continue with the hopper buses, then they would at least have the money available. If they decide to continue. No, quite clearly, when the point comes for the council to make a decision as to whether or not to acquire new buses, one of the major items must be the usage and what those buses actually do. Absolutely. And I'm not proposing to have that debate at this stage because we're at least 2 years away, I would think. Would be my view. Certainly, Councillor DeCourt.
It linked to this, it's a bit of a separate item, which is the AGP carpet. And obviously you said that that's a long way. It is a long way off. It's took 10 years. It hasn't even been laid yet. So it hasn't even got worn out. But 200,000. I remember Carl suggesting with that one, and there is a difference because there's a commercial income coming from it. I remember him saying, which I thought was right, we might put it in some sort of sinking fund or reserve, whatever you want to count. And I think that's the right thing to do.
Right.
To effectively 20,000, whatever it is, 10,000 a year for
That's right.
for 10 years. I just think when we're breaking out the other two, the hopper and the Christmas lights, we ought to know that that's the way. And it is different because we get a commercial income from it. So we're not, all we have to do is, as Carl did, remember that we need to put some aside each year from it.
We do, which is exactly in line with what I've been advocating for the other assets now. So absolutely, and my belief that all the figures we've seen have actually sort of included a replacement amount for that, because again, we couldn't possibly suddenly raise £200,000 at that point. I've just, obviously what I'm trying to do here is just try to ensure that this council's been responsible for the capital receipts reserve and the use of it is, planning robustly and sensibly for the impact of that going forward.
Yeah. All right, good, excellent. In that case, can we move to the recommendations on page 27? I'll take them one by. I'll take 2.1 to 2.4 as they are, if that's all right. Is everybody happy with 2.1 to 2.4? And am I happy taking 2.1.5 with the additional rider that I read out earlier on in relation to the reserves? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's fine. That's really to clarify with the, with Hampstead with section 11.
Oh, sorry, thank you. So, no, thank you. I almost forgot about the weekend thing. Yes, we've agreed to add on. Recommend to not recommend, but I'm sure let me find an alternative wording.
Just the note section
To
11.
note that we're not going to recommend the Wheat Hampstead request. Can we?
Well, I was gonna, sorry, I mean, effectively, they've asked us, haven't they? So effectively, we just need to say no. It seems to be a complicated way, we just need to politely decline.
Is that for this committee or for council?
Oh, that's what we're recommending, isn't it?
Yes,
That they'd like to decline.
we're recommending the council to decline, yes.
Yeah.
That's it. Are we all right, happy with that one?
There's a simple letter, easy reply.
Oh, yes, and that's what it's waiting for, yes. Thank you for that, Gavin, because yes, that does simplify it dramatically. My brain is not in gear. Yes. Right, okay. Moving on to the review of internal control and internal audit arrangements. Page 40. Finance officer.
Thank you, Chair. So there are no material changes to the arrangements that were presented last financial year. Something just to flag is regarding the fidelity guarantee insurance that we've got in place. So this is in place in the event of employee fraud, and so we need it, and the cover is offered in round millions. So when the capital receipt was received for the former allotment site at Westfield Road, the cover was increased from 3 million to 5 million. Now, as money's been spent and projects have been completed, we're now at a stage where we can reduce that cover from 5 million to 4 million. So it's just worth noting that. And obviously that level of insurance will reduce further as more projects are carried out over the next couple of financial years. So it may be another couple of years and we'll be down to 3 million, but that's where we are at the minute. Have to take any further questions.
Questions? No, okay, can we agree the recommendation therefore at 2.1? Thank you. Right. Treasury management on page 47.
Thank you. Chair. So, just a couple of reminders on this one. So the Treasury management strategy for this financial year was approved this time last year, and then because of the big change in interest rates, we did a review of the Treasury management strategy for this year last time. This Treasury management strategy is for next financial year. Just to, you can follow me on that?
You like a treasury management strategy.
Exactly. So yeah, we're fully up to date with all our strategies. So the main difference on this is as our cash forecasts change throughout the year, we may be in a position where one of our fixed term £1 million can't be invested for a full 6 months. If I am in that position, what I'd like to do is be able to increase the amount of funds placed with Lloyds in the 32-day call account that we approved last time, just to give me that flexibility if that situation comes up. So it's just increasing the amount that can be placed in the 32-day call account from £500,000 to £1 million. But obviously in an ideal world, I'll be able to place the £1 million for the fixed term for 6 months because you get a better rate return if you can do that. But just to give me that bit of flexibility next financial year. Any questions?
Any questions? No, so I was voting, sorry, I got
All is extremely sensible to me, and given the importance of it to next year's budget, very important that we get it right. Everybody happy with that? Risk management strategy and the risk register. I assume that everyone clicked onto the link to read this absolutely thrilling 300-page tome, which the risk management committee, ably chaired by Councillor Turnbull, ploughed through in some considerable detail. Tell us, officer.
Thank you, Chair. So as mentioned earlier in the agenda, this is the recommendation from the Accounts Risk Subcommittee. The Accounts Risk Subcommittee with the thorough review over 2 meetings. The format of the strategy and the risk register are the same, as no changes to that. There were some recommendations from the Accounts Risk Subcommittee. All of the ones that could be put through, all the amendments that could be made have been made. Everything else has been noted and will be put in the risk register for the following year. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
Only one quick one. It strikes me, well, I just reading this morning about a child that lost their life sadly by being hit by a falling tree. And we have so many trees on our land. What, I don't know, what do we do about trees? Are they checked once a year? Are they checked once every 5 years?
A survey of the trees have just recently been carried out, and that was completed in August, I think, by the time they completed that. So they're checked, and then we get a like red, amber, green about how urgent the works are to be carried out. So if there are any urgent works required, they're always carried out very quickly to make sure that it reduces the level of risk. So hopefully things like that won't happen.
I think in the case you're referring to, it had been observed or noted that in fact it was dangerous and work needed to be done.
Yes,
The phrase was it required further investigation and immediately presuming something like a red or amber, and in fact the issue was they didn't do it.
Yeah, it was in Glasgow, wasn't it?
it was.
Any other questions? Okay, I have one point on the recommendation 12.1 there. There was a list of items actually in the minutes which are actually put it out on the agenda, which is the full recommendation, including the changes on consolidating headings, deleting events occurred, etc., etc. Can you ensure that's included in the full recommendation for council? Thank you. Okay, on that basis, are we happy to agree the risk strategy and the risk register? Sorry, I was going to add one thing. The risk register that we have here now is extremely comprehensive, and certainly from a number of us who are on the risk committee is about the most comprehensive register I've seen, certainly even against private sector ones. So well done for that. It's very good. It's very good.
If you want to put yourself to sleep, start and read it.
It's still important and essential.
1 and 2 sessions,
It's essential, but it's essential.
I agree full-heartedly. It's essential. I must admit, I commend the officer for all the hard work and all these comments.
Okay, can we agree the recommendation then? 2.1? Thank you. Right, business continuity plan. Another essential document.
Thank you, Chair. So similar to the previous item, this document's been reviewed by the Accounts and Risk Committee before being presented here. In summary, this document's used when an incident has occurred to ensure that we get back up and running as quickly as possible. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions? You think no significant changes, is that correct?
No significant changes there.
Councillor Cousin.
I remember something similar at the district council, cyber security and kind of like data and hacking. And are we happy that our, I don't know, our level of protection is sophisticated enough for the hacks that might come our way?
We've got as well as everyone having the up-to-date antivirus software, everyone's got their password, as well as we've got, I always forget the correct terminology, is it
Two-factor.
two-factor authentication. So we've got that. So every now and then you have to approve on your mobile phone or send yourself a code so that everything's in place that could be in place that puts you in the best position.
And is there a local government standard, like, I don't know, firewall or something, or is it just left to all different councils to manage their own cybersecurity?
I'm not aware of a specific standard that you have to keep, but I think it's just with viruses and whatnot, it's moving all the time. So it's just making sure that we carry on doing what we're doing and making sure that the updates to our Microsoft licenses are kept up to date, which we do, just to make sure we're in the best possible position.
Okay.
Okay, any further point? No, okay, then Keith, can we take the recommendation to approve the business continuity plan? Thank you. Right, I believe we're now into community grant application on page 83.
So this report presents a community grant application for £2,000 from the Salvation Army to help fund the procurement of a new projector, which will primarily be used for the Memory Lane Cafe. I think the £2,000 application isn't for the full amount, which would just be approving the that we would pass over the £2,000 to the Salvation Army once they're in a position and have generated enough donations to acquire the whole piece of equipment, which is, so it's just over 7,000 in total, so they'd need to acquire another £5,000 or just over of funding. But happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
Have we got a limit per person for that? It's 2,000.
2,000.
Isn't that? Yeah, I mean, we should try that, isn't it, the old days? No.
Councillor Cole.
Just a comment about the marketing of this. I presume, when we do it, we want to say that we've done it. But for another, one reason is people know where we put the money. I'm sure they'll all approve this.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm judging the recommendation in a minute, but that's my view. But obviously that's now 2 times 2 gone to the Salvation Army, and I got no problem with that, a worthy third thing. But do we have, if we promote it, we ought to sort of say that we're still open for HD still has funds available through this grant fund. Just something that's, because we increased it to 8K.
We did.
And we'll have now given 2 twos, and somebody watching it closely may think, okay, that's it wrapped up. We just sort of say still available, or we'll still have some funds. Good.
Yes, how do community groups know that we have this money, or do they just apply hoping that we have?
No, so there has been a social media campaign, and we have promoted the fact that we have got the grant fund available. But this has been the only application that we've received, unfortunately. I think we can always do another push to say we've
I just thought that up with the PR that we put out for this, just say that still funds available this year for those groups who might be considerate, some wording like that on the right press release, but something like that.
I agree. I mean, the funds are there. They're there for useful projects around the town, of which these two are. We've done earlier community grants this year. We did one for the swimming club, I seem to remember. But this one seems to me to be particularly valuable and in line with what we do as part of the, because we support Memory Lane Cafe in any case. So I think that's well worth doing personally. Okay, can I get an agreement then on recommendation 2.1? Thank you. I think that brings the meeting to a close. 8:24.
9 minutes.